and welcome to the Presenter Mastery Podcast. I'm Lucas.
And I'm David.
And together we're your weekly guides for unlocking the power of presentation skills. Now, whether you're in sales, leadership, coaching, training, or any other field, this podcast is your go-to resource for everything presentations related. Now, the goal with this podcast is to transform your ability to captivate and influence your audience and become a master presenter. And today, we are talking about blackouts, specifically handling blackouts during presentations.
Indeed.
So could what are blackouts? Is it just the power going out and with digital your camera is dying, or are we talking about maybe the internal blackouts and the memory losses and everything horrible that can happen when we stand on stage?
Yeah, it can be a sudden sensation, it can be a gradual sensation. The gradual sensation I think is more common, and that's the one where you're just about to go up to present. You've been nervous maybe for up to a week before, dreading this moment or thinking about it, often visualizing what possibly could go wrong. And then as you go up, you start sweating, your palms are sweaty, your heartbeat is going literally through your shirt or your blouse or whatever you're wearing. And you stand there and you start talking and your mouth goes dry and you start losing words and your vocabulary gets weak and you don't really know where you are anymore. And the only thing that you can rely on is that your mouth is still working because you have no idea where you are, what you're doing, what you're saying. And you can hear it in your voice, it's trembling. You can see that rush of redness coming up through your neck. And then for some people, yes, it just goes black and they faint. That would be the ultimate version of blackout. Yeah, definitely nothing we want. And the absolute opposite of being a brilliant presenter. It doesn't make you the best you can be, that's for sure.
No. It's a horrible feeling. I don't know about you, but I definitely have stood on stage and just lost what I was about to say. I remember one time when I got a question that I knew the answer, but I just couldn't figure it out at the time. And my coping mechanism, instead of just going completely dry and just walking off, I thought to myself, maybe if I just keep on talking, I'll remember what the answer was.
That is such a shitty strategy.
Yeah, it didn't work very well. I remember I increased the sweat rate, just increased. My body got warmer and warmer. And eventually 3 minutes later, when I thought I had circled the topic enough, I still didn't arrive at the answer.
It's still very impressive that you're still on the same topic though, because I've literally heard people use that strategy where they just keep on talking in the hopes of they coming up what they was actually supposed to say, but then they've already left the topic, gone into two other topics, and they have no idea which topic they are on.
I think they in between the words kind of resorted to finding the question, the answer themselves.
Yeah,
but it's not a proud moment. It's
not. But you know what? The chances of them, first of all, remembering that is probably zero.
True.
And the second thing is that they have the chances are that they notice that you were nervous is probably also very limited. And if they notice that you were nervous, it just made you more human and they cared for you. But from your point of view, you probably felt like, they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me, with their mind.
It's crazy in that way where that memory is now in me.
Yeah.
But as you say, that was just 3 minutes of someone else's time, and it's not important for their lives. But it's important in my life because next time I'm going up on stage, I will have that memory. It's a new audience, but I'm still connected with the task that I'm doing, standing on that stage, talking in front of new people, but it's still people. The situation for me is the exact same. Yeah. And the memories come back, and that triggers the responses, making it feel tough.
Yeah. Hey, that's it's life, right?
So, has this happened to you?
I very rarely. I don't think I've had maybe I've had one full out blackout kind of thing. I didn't faint, but it happened in my second TED talk. I have when I go through my second TED talk, which is the magical science of storytelling, I go through oxytocin, and then I go through the story of my child who died at birth or just prior to being born. And that just emotionally hit me so strongly when I was up there delivering the talk, that in combination with the immense stress that I felt, because when I do my TED Talks, it feels like, at least I feel a pressure to be judged, because I am supposed to be an expert in public speaking, and I have to deliver a keynote on public speaking whilst using public speaking. That's very rare that you have to use your own subject to prove your point. So I'm always quite nervous, because I know these TED Talks are going to be seen by millions of people, and they're going to be recorded, and they're going to exist forever. So that, in combination with that phenomenal impact of that story of my unborn son, that was just too much. So I, somewhere, minute 13, 14, I don't know where it is, 12 maybe, I just blacked out in regards to that. I had no idea what I was saying, but I had rehearsed my TED Talk so many times that it just went on to like an automatic thing, and my mouth just went at it, and it knew exactly which word to say, where to move, what to do, where to stand, which gesture to use. But for me, it felt strange, because when I left the stage, I have no idea what I said. I have no idea what happened the last 5 minutes. But people love the last minutes. So, and I don't think people can actually see the difference, but I felt a massive difference. But it was saved by my phenomenal amounts of hours I put into practicing it. So that would be an example.
Yeah. Well, it's a very strong one. Not remembering still to this day, I guess, then.
Yeah.
What you actually did within those 5 minutes, but due to rehearsing and just having done all of that prep work, it was possible to just keep on.
Yeah.
I guess for most that's not the case. I assume now the amount of time that you put in to the TED Talks is not equal to the amount of time people usually put into preparing for their presentations. There is a big gap in that, I believe, especially if you're doing a corporate presentation or a sales presentation, whatever it may be, something that you just do on the fly, a weekly presentation perhaps. So have you seen, like, in the years of coaching people, and what have you seen the strategies that people use? I mean, my babbling on was one very terrible thing to do. Have you seen other things that people do that are maybe not the best ways to tackle blackouts?
Ways that weren't good? Wow. I'd say that I don't think people really have strategies for it, It's because their mind just goes blank, and they're not able to think, they're not able to cognitively execute efficient thoughts. So by instinct, they either just shut down, or they babble as you do, or they just cut the talk short and they leave, something like that. But there are plenty of strategies to like work around it. And I've also got to add, like, what is a blackout? Well, we got to have kind of a scale. So if we look at a scale from 0 to 10, so 0 is you're super calm, nothing going on. But like 1 would be light nervousness, like just a slight tension. Maybe 2 is stronger tension. Maybe you can start to feel your heartbeat. Level 3, I think that's where nervousness stops being good for you. Then you go on to level 4, level 5, level 6, and that's where it just increases the inability to remember things, inability to speak. And level 10 is where your blood pressure is so high that you literally faint. So it's a scale.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at blackouts, we're looking at what are the tips for like 8 to 10? Because they vary on the scale. The tips for 0 to 3 and 3 to 5 and so on, they vary, and there's so many.
So if a person finds him or herself at a level 9, 10 severe blackout. Well, 10, obviously they're fainting, so you have to call the ambulance and maybe get some help in there.
10 is fainting. 9 is still awake.
The almost most serious, but not the most serious.
Yeah.
If we go from that part, what would your suggestion be? Is it more preparations in the beginning, just to not make sure from the start that you don't end up there, or how do you tackle this?
Catch it as early as possible. It probably starts at the 7 and carries on to a 9. And if you catch it at 7, it's way easier to stop. So whenever you're struck by fear, your sympathetic nervous system is impacted. So you have a parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic is the relaxed version of you. That's the one that's activated when you go to bed and you go to sleep. And then you have sympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system that tries to get you out of anything that may harm you. So fight and flight, freeze kind of thing. And that's quite fun as well, fight, flight, freeze. You know, if you're out driving your car and there's a deer which comes up on the road, it's obviously frightened to death. What's its strategy? It has fight. I haven't seen a lot of deer fight, but that flight, that doesn't actually happen. Freeze is more common. So they just stop and they look at you and they go like, are you going to kill me? What's going on? I'm just going to stand still. Maybe you won't see me. Yeah. And then for some reason they flee and they run away. And it's the same thing when you see people on stage where they literally freeze. They don't get out of their spot. They just stand still. And when you stand still, that entire sensation just builds up. And to release your stress, you need to move. So that is one of the strategies to reduce your nervousness, to have functional movements. So when you feel that you're up there and you're hitting level 7, you're starting to feel your pulse go up. Instead of, again, you shouldn't either irregularly run backwards and forwards, because that's the deer running backwards and forwards over a road trying to escape. Yeah, that's bad as well. But functionally moving on stage will reduce your nervousness. And it's the way. So you can either reduce nervousness by mental techniques or physical techniques. Mental techniques isn't the most brilliant strategy around 7, 8, 9, because your cognitive abilities, they're just out of the room. So you should use physical techniques to reduce your nervousness. What are they? What are the physical techniques to reduce nervousness? Well, the most obvious one is breathing. So we know breathing has a direct access to the brain in regards to making us calm. And I'd like just to share a cool study on this, which I think is just so representative of this, and that is that so they had a family of rats, which they led through like a metal tunnel. And they could go through it, or they could stop, or they could go wherever they wanted. But they had to go through the tunnel once. And then they smashed and drummed on this tunnel, and they got scared, mad, and they ran away. Okay? And then they deactivated rapid breathing. Don't ask me how you do that. But they literally just deactivated rapid breathing in these rats. And then they had them go through the tunnel again, and they drummed at the tunnel, and the rats just laid down in the tunnel itself. Super relaxed, super chill. This tells us that breathing is directly connected to the amplification of fear, which means that if you start feeling fearful, simply breathing slower in a slower breathing pattern will signal to your brain that we're okay. So it's like the primary switch to reduce nervousness or panic.
Yeah, I guess because like when you go into panic, as you say, freezing and then tensing up and even almost forgetting to breathe, will just pause everything inside you. It feels, you're frozen.
Yeah.
So it's a way to just start to thaw up your body in a way, breathe, get in the warmth, and then start moving.
Yeah. There is a particular breathing technique, which is called the physiological sigh, and I've found that to be absolutely most powerful. You know, I still get nervous these days, and sometimes I have clients who are super nervous. But the physiological sigh also empties your body of carbon dioxide to a greater degree, and also impacts your overall breathing pattern. So the way you do it is 2 quick inhales through your nostrils and then a long exhale, preferably with a sigh at the end. So you also activate your vagus nerve. So it would go like something like this, where you go now. That can be difficult to do at level 8 while on stage, right? Especially if you have a microphone.
Yeah.
But imagine that you're either just going up to stage or standing on stage, or you're showing them a video whilst you have a moment for yourself. You do this. And you do this 3 or 4 times, and you'll feel an immediate impact in your 7, 8s, or 9s going down to 6s. So I'd definitely recommend the physiological sigh. I'd recommend movement. Not any movement at all. I'll give you an example. I had a keynote for Ericsson. This was in my younger years, so a while ago. And what I've learned is to catch nervousness early on. So the earlier you catch it, the earlier it'll stop and the less it'll escalate, and the easier it will be to stop it. So I am in this room. There's 300-400 people in there, and I'm just about to go up when for some reason they say, you know, this one's in English, right? And I'd prepared it in Swedish. So that messed me up a bit. But then when I was there, I was going through the ethos, logos, and pathos, like the most classical rhetorical model around. Aristoteles. Here we go. And I'm up there, and I go, and then we have ethos, and then we have logos, and then we have, what the freak? And I couldn't come up with it. I've said it 1,000,000 times, but I just couldn't remember it. I started to feel my heart racing. I started to feel myself sweating. I started to feel me going from a 2 to a 3 to a 4 to a 5 very quickly. I realize this is happening. So consciously now, I turn around and I look at them in a very slow pace. I say, isn't the mind an interesting thing? I know this. I've said this 1,000 times. However, I have no idea what it is. And I don't want you to help me either. I want to figure this one out myself. So just give me a moment. We'll just carry on and it'll come back to me, okay? And I just carried on working on the other stuff, and then I go like, boom, there we are. It's pathos. Ha ha! Yes! All right, back to ethos for now. And what I want to say with this is that what I did was, when you consciously slow down your breath, consciously slow down your movements, consciously slow down your pace of voice, it signals to your brain that you are definitely not running away from anything. And it goes like, okay, all right, maybe I was wrong then. Maybe we'll just calm this shit down and, remove that adrenaline rush that you're having in your body. Cool. I'm with you. I'm on your side now. And then the second thing, this is such an important thing to remember when it comes to nervousness and making mistakes, and that is that it makes you human. It is in the mistakes, it's in the vulnerability that you connect with your audience. It is so important that when I build my TED Talks, I spend 4 hours for each minute in preparation. My TED Talks become so flawless that I have to add mistakes for them to seem more human, right? Therefore, embrace the mistakes. That's such a big mental shift for people. So when something happens to you, You don't go, oh, I'm sorry, oh, just to fix it. That is the worst case, because one, you're making yourself more nervous, you incapacitate your mental cognitive abilities, and B, you seem like you don't know what you're doing. But if you do what I did, you go, I'm sorry, let me just look at my notes. And you go flip, 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 flip. Ah, of course. And then you carry on. You won. That you just gave yourself 10 points instead of removing 10 points. Use occasions like this as an opportunity of connecting.
I like that. Being human, just being yourself.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Which means that if you do a mistake, you just own the mistake. And then you will go away from that point where they're just a better reflection of what happened. So when you stand on the stage next time, it's not the same that I felt when I couldn't answer the question and I went up on stage. Oof, will I remember now? Because it's just all right.
Yeah. Perfectly. It's better than all right. Something you should do to connect with your audience. Show vulnerability. Show who you are. Yeah. Right? I had a talk just a couple of weeks ago where I was in Miami and I was missing my family a lot. And I began, or very early in my talk, I said something of the lines of, because it was a talk on self-leadership. And I said, what is self-leadership? Self-leadership is choosing how you want to feel when you want to feel it in order to be as awesome as possible in the activity that you're going into. And I miss my family. I miss my family so much. I'm here in Miami. I've been gone for them. I miss my wife. But sometimes we don't miss our family. Sometimes we don't miss our wife because we spend all the time with them. So I've got this conscious technique of when I'm in the car, maybe I've just been to the shop or something like I'm coming back to my family. I've spent the entire week with them or weeks with them. And just for a moment, for 30 seconds, I imagine that when I get home, it is dark, it is locked, and for some reason, my family doesn't exist anymore because they passed away in a car accident or something. I do that for 30 seconds. I come home and I give them such a hug and with such presence because I choose who I want to be in that moment. And when I did that in this talk, I just showed vulnerability and gave them a part of my personal life. Damn, that was one of the better talks. Daring to be vulnerable. Yeah.
Well, wow. So, daring to be vulnerable, being human, that's basically the most important things.
That's the most important things in mistakes, yeah.
And don't forget, if you find yourself at around a 7, you feel nervousness is building up, use the physiological sigh to just breathe, get warmth back into your body, get out of the freeze, and you should be okay.
Yeah, and combine that with slow movements, slow pace, functional movements around the stage. And yeah, those in combination will signal to your brain that, hey, we're not being chased. That was a false alarm. We're good to go. Here we go. Here's your brain power back. You can now remember language. There you go.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And embrace mistakes. Just embrace them. Be happy that they happened. You're more connected with your audience and you're just showing who you are.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great.
All right. I think we're at the end, David, for today.
Sure. Blackout. Check.
Done that. And well, we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. See you again.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.